Hi guys, hope you're all okay. Rich from Trackspark here with another little tutorial. Hope you're having a great start to the summer. It's absolutely lobbing it down here today, but we have had some nice weather. I guess you can't have a couple of days nice weather without consequences. Not in the UK anyway. Yeah, there you go. Anyway, let's get on with the tutorial. So sort of today's little sort of tutorial, if you want to call it that, is on vocal inspiration. And what I mean by that is what you can do with some of the samples, the vocal phrases that we've given you over the last couple of months. So it's a bit of a, I don't know, I guess, showcase or whatever you want to call it with some of the stuff that we've been giving you. I didn't do this on purpose. Like I always say, I like to give you tips and stuff on what I am going through in sort of recent times or recent projects that I'm working on. This keeps popping up. With recent things that I'm working on, just to share them with you as I'm doing them, really, whether it be a problem or a little tip. So that's what I'm doing here, and I thought it would be good to sort of take some of these vocal phrases because they're quite obviously dry, and the singer's, although she's a great singer, I love her voice. There's a bit of a jazzy tone to them, nice, creamy, smooth, and all the rest of it. How you can manipulate them and change them into something completely different. Similarly, with the drums that I give you a lot of live drums, and I think live drums are really useful to have. They might not be the most awe-inspiring sort of crazy EDM dance loops, but they come in handy. They're really, really usable and useful. So that's what I sort of wanted to show you in a vocal sense sort of this time. And also, if you've seen some of my other vocal sort of tutorials, you might remember that I use a lot of, I have used sort of the actual WAVs themselves, the wave files in the session, and I've manipulated them or collaged them up in like these sort of, WAV files like this. I've collaged them up in that way, whereas in this particular project, I have used a sampler. So we can see sort of the benefits of doing it this way as well. So I hope that all makes sense. I'm going to crack on and I'll play you the track. So this is a vocal sort of section, and this is a slightly different vocal section. So I'll let you play this, listen to the track, and then take you through how I've changed them, sort of what I've done, and the actual sample that I use, so you can hear where it's come from. Okay, and hopefully you'll take a bit of inspiration from what I've done and see what you can create. There you go then. So there you go. Sort of a cool R&B sort of sound with some manipulated vocals in there. And I think I've used about four, maybe 4 to 5 different sort of parts of some of these vocal phrases. So I'll just take you through them, each one, and you can see where it's come from. So like I said, I think we'll start with this one called Don't Ya. So I'll just solo it and get the sort of sampler up. Now, I think most DAWs now have a sampler built in that you can use, so you can drop your own samplers in and trigger them that way. So don't think this is just particular to Cubase, which is what I'm on at the moment. This is obviously doable in pretty much every DAW. So Yeah, I thought I'd say that first of all. Right, so here we go. This is the sample that I've got in here. So let's just listen to what I've done. You can see here the sort of the MIDI notes that I've used. So you can almost tell what she's saying. Don't, and I've written obviously "don't you," which helps. But it's sort of that sort of ambiguity of you think you can tell you definitely know she's saying something. What she's saying, I'm not totally sure. Or is she saying "don't you"? So that's, you know, quite a cool common thing to do nowadays. Right, so look. So there's the sample. It's the file itself is "Don't You Walk Away From Me." Let's see if we can find it. "Don't You Walk Away From Me" 1. Here we go.
Don't you walk away from me. I can't bear to watch you leave.
There we go. So it's that sample from the G minor pack of last month's vocal phrases. The song itself is in C minor, so a lot of it is going to be sort of repitched. I think I've actually kept some of it in its original sort of on its original pitch, although it should probably go up a fourth because the song itself is in C minor, a fourth above G minor. That instantly would give a bit of a crazy sort of modern vocal effect in itself. So what else have I done? I've sped it up. Obviously, I've sped it up because the original one was too slow for the song. I've also added or taken away a bit of formant or reduced the formant, which gives it that a bit more of that chipmunky sound. So I think it closes the throat a bit. So it makes it sound a bit more. If you were to take this off, let's see the difference.
Don't you walk away from me.
Let's put the formant back on.
Don't you walk away from me.
So you can obviously hear the speed there, but the formant itself is a tiny bit more chipmunky. So not huge, and there's some delay and reverb on there. So the good thing about using a sampler and triggering it through MIDI, let's make this a bit bigger, is that you can instantly find the notes or the pitches that you want for your song. So you're not, you know, using a pitch shifter and trial and error sort of thing. It's really easy just to get that snippet, and also it's really good. You can see here I've used more than one MIDI note, so to thicken the vocal up with a bit of a vocal harmony at the same time. So that's one really cool sort of way of doing stuff. One use of using a sampler rather than just putting the waveform in your session, in your project. So that's the first one. So we've got "Don't You," and if we just quickly go back to this, I've got the whole thing in here. Really, I'm only using up to there. So it's this little snippet here that I'm actually using just there. So I don't really need all of that in there. So it's a tiny snippet that we can see, and we can see the short phrases really, and triggering it through MIDI. I've got a really sort of, if we look at my my release, I've got no release basically, so it completely cuts the phrase off or the word off as soon as my MIDI note stops, which helps me create this little sort of snippet or collage of phrases. So let's go to this one now. Yeah, let's go to this one, because if I'm correct, it's the same phrase. "Don't you walk away from me." So it's exactly the same phrase.
Don't you walk away from me.
But as we can see here, I've snipped the first bit off.
Walk away from me. Walk away from me.
And it's just that bit
Walk away from me.
that I'm using. Again, I've got a really short release time or no release time at all. So again, it stops as soon as my MIDI note is released. But if we play them together, I've got a contrast. I've got a contrast in sort of pitches now. These are slightly lower, and this one's higher. So I have pitched it up a fourth, this one. So that's one way of creating the sort of sound that I've been on about. Also, sped it up again if we look at the speed here, and I've increased the formant, which by increasing it, it reduces the sort of chipmunkiness. Because I've pitched it up, you're naturally going to get a bit of a chipmunky sound, and it was, I guess, just a bit too much. I wanted it to sound slightly more natural in this unnatural vocal way, I guess. So let's just listen again. So it's helped create this nice little collage again. And then now let's listen to this one. So let's see what I've done here. I've got, the file is You Can't Face Me. So let's find that. You Can't Face Me. Yeah.
You can face me.
So a nice sort of soulful falsetto little sample. And what have I done?
Face me. Face me.
I've taken it to Face Me, but just chopped off the front of the F, the F sound, which is sort of a bit old school in style, but again, retro, I guess. So it's chopping right into the phrase after it started. And if we look at the MIDI notes that I have used, again, sorry, before I move on, sped it up a tiny bit and a tiny bit more chipmunk, I guess, because I've gone down an octave. Although I've pitched it up in the right key, I've taken it then down an octave to this F2 here. So it's in contrast to these two higher vocal samples. So that's how I've layered those three up. And then we've got this one here called Do. And let's see what it's come from. I don't know. Number 2. Where's that then? Let's have a look down here. I don't know. There we go.
I don't know what I can do.
So if we look here, I've chopped it all the way to the Do. There's a bit of drive on that. Tiny bit more formant. Well, reduce the formant, which gives it chipmunk, and sped it up. Quite a bit of drive on there as well. So I've not got really any sort of actual lyric there. It's just a bit of a doo-doo sort of thing, just to sort of fill in the gaps between the actual sort of phrasing here. So let's just listen to the sort of collage that I've created. So from those sort of 3 phrases, those 3 sort of jazzy, sort of soully jazzy sort of phrases, I've created this sort of quite modern and cool vocal. Now we'll do the last one for the sake of it because we're here, but it's going to be some, more of the same. So Come Closer. Let's find Come Closer. Here we go.
Come on, baby, come closer.
And what have I got?
Become closer. Become closer. Become closer.
So I've chopped it right out, so it sounds like Become Closer. And again, let's see what I've done to the. Sorry, we'll go back. Tiny bit of formant. Speed's about the same for this one, but let's see what I've done with the pitch.
Become closer.
So you can see the snippets that I've used. I've pitched it up
Become closer.
a fourth. So then it's in key.
Become closer.
There's the original.
Become closer. Become closer. Become closer.
Yeah, so it's upper fourth, and it already gives it that sort of cool processed sound. So that's one really good tip anyway for doing all of this. If you pick phrases from a different key, then you're instantly gonna, create some sort of effect with them without even trying. So let's just have one last quick listen to see, to hear it, give it a, to hear what we've done, and we'll leave you with it. So there we go, taking these samples that you already have, really nice, natural sounding, and creating something really, really modern and totally different. So I hope that has given you a bit of sort of inspiration to maybe try it yourself. Right, and I'll speak to you next month. Cheers, guys. Bye.